What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Eric Wilson. Today, joined by my co-hosts, Anthony Rivardo and Colin Alcapes. Today, we're here to do a Game 2 reaction and breakdown. Last night, the Rangers had a pretty close matchup against the Carolina Hurricanes, but we all know who came in clutch. Vincent Trocheck in the second overtime period. I know I was sleepy, but I stayed up because I had to see the outcome of the game, and I'm very happy about the outcome because if we lost, I probably would have been very upset right now, but you can tell that the vibes are good over here in Fireside Nation. Obviously shout out Igor too, but we'll get into all of that good stuff. Talking about this incredible game and the Rangers and the amazing postseason run that they've been on thus far. But before we do, make sure that you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, maybe even ring that bell, just so you don't miss a notification. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Leave your thoughts on Game 2 down in the comment section below. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on Instagram, X, and TikTok. We've been popping off over there. Some great content. We're always cooking. But before we really get into it, Colin, how are you doing?
I am fantastic. Coming off that game last night after my heart palpitations and whatnot settled. I gave Tone and Will a call after the game. Eric, you must have been sleeping already. But we had a nice little powwow, and we were just screaming Vinny and doing the gestures and all the above. We're just no better words to describe it after winning that double overtime game. I was worried it was going to not go our way, as any game could, especially, with the way that they were playing and the power plays that Trouba kept handing them. But, Rangers power play pulls it out. The penalty kill comes too strong again, and here we are with smiles on our faces. So I could not be better.
Yeah, I mean, I can confirm I was immediately asleep. There was a point where after the first overtime ended, I had a feeling that it was going to be an all-nighter, because that's what happens. If no one scores in the first overtime, then the game kind of just settles into this just like back and forth, like everyone's tired and they're not going to score until like overtime 4. So I had like the call out sick button ready to go for work. Like I was prepping for a very long, eventful night of hockey, but luckily Vinny T ended it. And as soon as he scored, I was like, all right, good night, boys. And I just went to bed. But Tony, how are you doing and how are you feeling about the Rangers at this very moment in time?
I'm feeling fantastic. I'm up real good right now. I just pressed place order on my Vincent Trocheck jersey. I'm very happy. My Italian brethren, he scored that big goal, game winner. I'm over the moon. The Rangers special teams was incredible last night. And Igor Shesterkin was also the czar, MVP level performance from him. So gotta love it, man. Rangers are up 2-0 in the series, and I'm thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, let's keep in mind throughout the playoffs so far, Rangers are 6-0. The last time they started a postseason 6-0 was 1994. Don't even got to say what happened that year. Everyone watching this channel absolutely knows what happened. But let's talk about Vinny Trocheck. I know we were texting earlier, Tony. You said there is some absolute glazing that needed to be done in favor of our Italian brothers. So I'm just going to pass it off to you right away. Tell me about Vinny T.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote an article about him this morning and just diving into the stats on him and the Rangers special teams as a whole. The guy's just going crazy right now. He's scored a goal in 5 straight games, which ties the longest streak in Rangers postseason history. And if you look at how he's played on the power play in particular, 10 points through the Rangers' first 6 playoff games, and 7 of them, I believe, 7 of them came on the power play. 4 straight games, he scored a power play goal. Also added 3 power play assists in the last 6 games of the postseason. So the majority of his production is coming on the power play. And, Vincent Trocheck has really been the engine that's fueled this New York Rangers team in the playoffs. I think that's going to be my talking point here. It's very underrated how much of an impact he's really had on this team. And I think that when you look at, obviously, Panarin's been incredible. Zibanejad had that amazing Game 1 performance, but through and through, the consistency over the last 10 games that he's played, the last 6 games in the postseason, I mean, Vincent Trocheck has just been unstoppable on that second line and particularly on that power play unit. So he's really been the catalyst to the Rangers' success.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, he doesn't have the most points by anyone. Zibanejad, I believe, still has the most. He recorded, I think, at least 1 point last night. But as far as who's been the most impressive and the biggest difference maker, you got to say that it's Trocheck. He scores in the most clutch moments. And obviously the double overtime winner. Took a couple crazy bounces to get onto his stick, but he was the one that put it in the net at the end of the day. So the Italian brother, he gets his praises from us. We love him. Colin's wearing his jersey right now. Tony, yours is on the way. And I'm feeling enticed. Maybe I got to get one too, even though I legally have to keep wearing my Lafreniere jersey until we don't win. Which, shout out him, 2 goals, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit. But Colin, was there anything you wanted to add about Trocheck?
I kind of want to piggyback off what Tony was saying. He was saying how through these playoffs he's probably been the most consistent player. But I think you can look back all season and he was nothing but consistent. I mean, you look at this year, and he's just been an absolute force. I think every night he makes the Canes regret letting him go, especially now and last night for sure. But he's just been a revelation, and it's crazy to think that, he almost was going to play on the third line and probably wouldn't have had the season that he's having. And now going forward, obviously there's going to be a conversation about that too, Steve, but we can talk about that later. I feel like you can't move him. He's just been such an absolute demon in that second center position here. And, the things that he brings to the game in terms of like drawing penalties. I mean, he was out there agitating Gensel to the point where Gensel punches Fox in the face, and he gives him a thumbs up on his way to the benches. Gensel's on his way to the box.
That was a hard moment.
You love to see that. That's great. He's an agitator. But he's also puts up the points. Like, he's not just somebody who goes out there and does dumb shit. He's scoring on top of it. And I love what they've done with him on the power play. He's in that bumper spot. And they've been using it really well in the give and goes. His deflections are getting there, and he's just cleaning up the garbage. And, you love to see it. I think he's just been fantastic all season long. So, obviously big props to him, and hopefully you can keep that coming.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he won the Stephen McDonald Extra Effort Award. He's the guy that's going to go out there and fight the tough battles and get the job done when we need it most. And the funniest part is, like, watching the game before he scored, obviously, I thought he had just like a mediocre game. I know the strongest of his strengths is his face-off abilities, and normally he's over 50% face-off success. But throughout the game, I think he had like low 40 percentages. Like, he was getting beat by Carolina. And I guess he took that and was like, all right, you're going to beat me in the face-offs. I'm going to beat you in the entire game. So, shout out to him for not like succumbing to all the things going wrong. And he was just like, I'm just going to score the double overtime winner, and we're all going to go home happy. But, obviously Trocheck scored the overtime winner. But to me personally, I wouldn't consider him the MVP of the game. To me, that has to go to Igor Shesterkin. 54 saves on 57 shots. I remember, Colin, during yesterday's live stream, I made a joke, and I said that Igor Shesterkin would make 0 saves in the game because the Rangers defense would play so good that we wouldn't allow a single shot on net. By the time we even entered overtime, they had over 100 shot attempts. And by the end of the game, Shesterkin made 54 saves, which is phenomenal. He's now extended his streak to 29 straight games in the playoffs, allowing 3 goals or less. The only player who has done more is New York's own Jonathan Quick, but that was back when he was with the Kings in the 2012-2013 seasons. So, like, Igor, he carried us that game. As much as we can shout out Trocheck and Lafreniere for their production, the Rangers wouldn't have made it to the second overtime if Igor did not shut the gates right then and there and become a brick wall. I saw a tweet earlier that said, unless my name is Vincent Trocheck or Alexi Lafreniere, I'm in that locker room on my knees begging for Shesterkin's forgiveness. And that kind of resonated with me because, without those 3, like, where are we right now? Series is tied 1-1 heading to Carolina. So I think Igor is my MVP, and I'm sure a couple of y'all got something to say about Igor.
Yeah, no, I'm in total agreement. When you're looking at the standout performers, the guys that you just mentioned, Igor, Trocheck, and Lafreniere, those are the 3. What Igor Shesterkin did yesterday was nothing short of remarkable. They put up a bunch of shots in his face, and every time the Rangers needed Igor Shesterkin to pull through, he just managed to pull through somehow. So, and that's really been the story of Igor Shesterkin's career. He's always been the guy that saves the Rangers when they need saving. And I think in many ways last night, you could say that he did save the team. I thought that the defense let Carolina get up way too many scorable opportunities, but Igor Shesterkin really stole a few and just turned in an absolute spectacle of a performance.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think if you look at the goals that he got beat on, typically I'm a little critical of the goalies. I love all of our goalies. I've loved them since I started watching. We've been very blessed. I would not put a single one of those on him. 2 deflections, those are hard to get, and the 60 to be tied up. The shots need to be taken away from the point. And I thought they did a better job of that as the game went along. And the other one, the secondary Gensel one, was just a breakdown in front. Gustafson and Kreider were puck watching a little bit. And Aho was doing his magic in the corner and got it out in front. But I would not put any of those goals on him. I think he made like 10 times more crazy saves than goals he let in. So, I'm not going to fault him for any of those. I think that he stood on his head all night. And you love to see it. You love to see that confidence in him kind of return to form after the shaky start to the season that he had. He's just been an absolute unit. They don't call him the Czar for nothing. And as long as he continues to play like this, I mean, this team is looking pretty good. And I also wanted to say there was a clip this morning I was watching. It was the Pat McAfee show. They had PK Subban on, and he was saying that he has the Rangers going to the Cup final because Igor is the best goalie in hockey right now. And I don't think that there's any argument to that just based on, you could take last night alone. But I think he's just been an absolute stud. So shout out to him and hope he can keep that up for us here.
Well, all I want to say is that I hate PK Subban, most overrated defenseman of all time. And I've seen his bracket because he posted it on Instagram, and he had the Rangers losing in the finals to Vegas, who got eliminated in the first round. So, yeah, sure, he might be on the ESPN broadcast, but his credibility is not there. Listen to us. We know what's going on. Who predicted the Game 1 score? He's right below me at this very moment. But just to wrap up the Igor discussion, throughout these 29 games in which he has recorded 3 goals allowed or less, that comes with a 2.13 goals against average, very, very good, and a .934 save percentage, also very, very good. Kind of reminds me of like the Henrik Lundqvist era where he was carrying us in the playoffs, except Igor doesn't really – he carried us last game, but – aside from last game, the offense and the defense have been phenomenal. So it's not like Igor is going to be extremely tired by the end of this year, like we've seen in years past. I don't have the quote pulled up, but I know Panarin said something where during the first overtime last night, he ended up taking a penalty on a 2-on-1, and Panarin was just like, look, man, like, I hate to take the penalty. I hate to sit there in the box, but like, it was a 2-on-1 against me. I took the penalty because I trust our penalty kill and I trust Igor. So he would have rather just had 2 minutes of Carolina power play than that one scoring opportunity that they had. And I think that's like the realest statement ever of just trusting your team and your goalie more than just like one play. So Panarin has faith, we have faith, and as long as those are in agreement, the stars are aligning, and Igor Shesterkin is en route to be a Conn Smythe Trophy winner if all goes well. But let's step away from the good parts for a second. I want to discuss one thing, and it's the attempted murder by Jacob Trouba. We on this channel, Trouba has made some questionable plays, and we've defended him. I don't think there's any defending Trouba last night. I saw another tweet that said Trouba made 20 good plays, 20 bad plays, took 20 penalties, and had an attempted murder. And I think that's the best way to put it. It's like it was like a roller coaster from Jacob Trouba right there. And moving forward, I don't really know what I want from him because he's on the third pairing now. Just limit the possibilities of him messing up. But man, I never wanted to see Jacob Trouba miss a hit that bad. That would have been instant suspension, instant fine. Martin Necas is just dead on the ice, basically. He went Superman mode. Like, Trouba, what are you doing, bro? Like, as much as I love him as my captain, there's a point where I can't defend him, And I know both of you have seen the hit, but how do you guys feel?
When I look at it, I compare. There's only one thing that comes to mind when I saw the direction and angle of his body flying into the boards like that. I don't know, Tony, you might have seen it. I know you probably haven't, Eric. You're not as into football, but there's a clip. I think it's Fred Warner, the linebacker for the 49ers, turns himself into an absolute spear and takes somebody out. It's similar to that, where he just kind of flings his body horizontal to the ground and just like no regard for life. So, you know, I think it's a crazy thing to see from your captain, especially, you know, when he's playing in a limited role and he's still taking as many penalties as he is. Had he made contact there with his head and taken it, what would have been a 5-minute major, that would have been detrimental. At what point do you start saying, you know, while he is our captain, like, these penalties are critical. This power play is good. I mean, our penalty kill has been very good, but the more you test them, obviously, the more tired they're going to get. You're constantly pushing these penalty killers, and the refs are calling a lot of whistles on us either way, not just on Trouba. So, like, I don't know. He's scaring me with the amount of penalties he's taking. I like that he plays such a physical game, but I'm happy. I agree that he missed that hit, because that would have been horrific for the Rangers in that penalty kill. A 5-minute kill could have turned the tides of that game like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's totally true. Listen, with Trouba, it's like, I don't know if it's a question of focus. I don't know what it is, but you are right. He's taking way too many penalties. And that one, that attempted murder was just ridiculous. I don't know what he was thinking when he just leaped across the ice like that. I mean, he literally turned himself, like you said, Colin, into a human spear. He looked like a rocket shooting upward towards somebody's brain. And I have no idea what the thought process was on that one. And I don't know if that needs to become a conversation that another player on the team pulls him aside, Laviolette steps in, but like taking risks like that and, you know, committing so many penalties in general, the Rangers are not winning these games handedly. Like, they are close games. Any minor mistake like that, and that's not even a minor mistake, that would be a major mistake. Anything like that could change the tide of not just a one game, but now we're going into Carolina. That could change the tide of the series, a mistake like that leads to a loss. So it really is a matter, I think, like I said, of focus. Trouba needs to lock in a little bit more than the rest of the team is locked in. You know, Igor's locked in, like we said, talking about Trocheck, Panarin, all these guys, Zibanejad. But for some reason, Trouba's just not up to speed, which is just weird because he's the captain. So it is very confusing. But like I said, if he makes a really bad mistake like that, it can change the tide of the series, especially going into Carolina. If he commits some terrible penalty, they score, they win off of it, well, then they're going to have momentum at home. And that's like the last thing that I want to see. So we need Trouba to just lock in and be better before tomorrow night's game.
Yeah, I mean, like, all I'm saying is if that hit connected, Zach Jones is making his playoff debut tomorrow night. Like, immediately. I think I texted you earlier, Tony. Like, it would have been the quickest suspension ever handed out, because the NHL always likes to target Trouba. And, you know, the fact that we are even admitting that was a very dangerous call, like, or play, it's pretty bad. You know, like, also, like, keep in mind earlier on in the game, Andrei Svechnikov literally took Igor out and made him do a flip onto the ice. I've seen a lot of rumors on the internet that Igor might have embellished a little bit there, you know, spun around a little bit, maybe more, a little bit more than he needed to. But at the end of the day, a goalie is not fair game. Even if he leaves his crease and he's behind the net handling the puck, you do not flatten a goalie. It's just like the unwritten rule number one of hockey. You don't touch another team's goalie. And the fact that Svechnikov did it, it warranted some kind of response. Maybe Trouba took it a little bit far, but I don't know. I'm sure that in Game 3 tomorrow night, there will be a couple of players out to get Trouba. Even though he didn't land the hit, the attempt alone will send a couple guys after him. But speaking of fighting and bruising and all that good stuff, Matt Rempe. What is his role going to be throughout the remainder of the series and the playoffs, really? Because heading into the series, we kind of had the discussion where Rempe's skill set isn't necessarily needed against a team like Carolina, where they're the more fast-paced, skilled team, and then Rempe's more of like the slow bruiser type of guy. Look back in Game 2, the game lasted over 87 minutes. Rempe played just over 4 minutes. So Laviolette has not been utilizing him as much. I know we were shorthanded quite a bit. There was a lot of special team stuff involved. And, you know, heading into overtime, both teams kind of just rolled with 3 offensive lines right there. But just the fact that he played so little has been bringing up the question of like, is he going to play in game 3? Are we going to see Brodzinski? Are we going to see Hedel? Personally, I would like to see Rempe remain in the lineup, especially knowing that someone might be coming for Trouba. But I understand the argument that at this point in the series, heading to Carolina where they're going to come out flying, that's when you might need an offensive boost. So I'm a little in the middle about it. If I had to choose right now, I would say keep Rempe in, but I understand the argument of just taking him out for the sake of what we need to beat Carolina.
I'll say for me, looking at it, obviously last series, it was important to have him in. You got a guy like Tom Wilson, who needs to be flattened sometimes. But to only play just over 4 minutes and not see the ice after the second, you can't. Laviolette doesn't trust him enough to play him in those important situations. I think that you have to start looking at the other options here, other guys. And I'm not saying, Brodzinski's the guy I want out there in double overtime. But, he's a good spot holder in the meantime while, the Stars are recharging on the bench a little bit. And I think that this team has, and I think they've shown it, a lot more grit than we realize. I think, obviously, Trouba can hold his own. Miller's really stepped up and been a huge physical presence, drawing a call against Nosen last night. Lindgren is just an absolute beast. And then Trocheck, too, is not afraid to rough guys up. And then Goudreau, VC, we have guys. I mean, they might not be 7'3", 240, but we got guys. So I'm saying if it comes down to it, you want players who Laviolette will trust and guys who can go out there and make a difference post second period. And I think that a guy like Hedel or Brodzinski would provide more of that in terms of allowing the Stars to rest and being able to put in a guy like a placeholder like that. Even Kakko and Cooley and them and Wenberg, their minutes got cut. I mean, they shortened the bench at the start of the first overtime and even late in the third. But you did see those guys still go out there, showing that there is trust, just not as much as obviously superstars. But in that time out there, they were good. They didn't make any mistakes. They played good defense. You need to have a guy like that in there. And unfortunately, Rempe just doesn't fit that mold for this series and in those close games. So for me personally, I mean, I've been a big Rempe guy. I love what he brings to the team. And I mean, the record stands for itself. But at some point, you have to look at it and what the team needs. And unfortunately, in this series, I don't think that Rempe is what the team needs. I don't think there's a guy who's going to need his teeth punched in outside of maybe Tony DeAngelo. And I think Keandre Miller will do it, no problem. I personally think that they should look to pull the plug on him and look to put somebody else who they trust in those late game minutes there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and not to tie this in just to rag on Trouba too much. I know we just kind of criticized him, but I think that these two situations are related. The amount of penalties that Trouba's taken and just the amount of penalties that the team has taken in general, I think have encouraged Laviolette to keep Rempe off the ice. Just in an effort to make sure that there's not too much bleeding, not too many penalties being given up. The penalty kill has been astounding in the series. Through 2 games, they haven't surrendered a single power play goal. But how many opportunities are you going to give them before they finally get that goal? It's got to be coming eventually. And so I just think that with guys like Trouba taking so many penalties, and since there's just been so many, I think that keeping Rempe off the ice, since he's kind of one of those guys that commits a lot of penalties, that's probably the reasoning why Laviolette is keeping him off the ice. And I do think that maybe if they hadn't given up so many penalties at that point in the game before Rempe got taken out, maybe we would have seen more of him. But just with all the penalties stacking up, I think that Laviolette's kind of thinking, if we put this guy back on the ice, this penalty problem might just expand and just compound upon itself. And that's something that he's trying to avoid. So I'd have to expect that a change is coming and Rempe won't be in the lineup soon enough. But it's also interesting if you take into account what Peter Laviolette said recently in one of his press conferences. He mentioned how Matt Rempe is a guy who has eyes on him from the referees. He said that referees watch him closely, like they like to make calls on Rempe. So it's just almost like a risk putting him on the ice in the first place. He can make a play where it's bang, bang, and you can debate whether or not it's a penalty, but the refs have their eyes on Rempe, so they're probably going to call it. And that's a risk, again, that you don't want to take in the postseason. And it's not like Rempe is providing so much to the team otherwise that the risk becomes worth taking. He's not. So I think that I'm in agreement. it's just not worth having him out there. Find somebody else who plays cleaner and isn't a penalty risk and can give you more meaningful minutes, give other guys a break. I think that's the route that Peter Laviolette is going to have to take. And again, based on his comments after the game last night and referring to Rempe as, somebody that the refs watched closely a couple days ago, I think that a change is definitely coming, and I'm probably in full support of that.
Yeah, I'm very happy that you brought that up because you just saved my breath, because that's exactly what I was going to say. If the NHL is going to do everything in their power to stop Rempe from playing, as much as it sucks, we got to make the smart decision and just I know that we all love him. We just like pull Rempe from it. If the NHL doesn't want to see him play and they're going to give the Hurricanes a power play every time he's on the ice, let them have this little minor win right here. Take their little boy off the ice, and then we'll throw in Philip Hedl or Johnny Brodzinski, and then our offensive production will go up, and then the refs can just hold that, basically. It sucks that we're even in this situation where one of our players who is honestly not committed that much bad penalties at the playoffs is going to have to be removed from the lineup because the refs just like to give him to him. And I'm sure we'll get some more confirmation tomorrow morning when we see the playoff lines and then obviously the warm-up rushes and everything. But it's a frustrating situation to see what the refs are doing to us. And it's hilarious because all of Carolina Twitter is going like, oh, Carolina versus the Rangers and the refs. Like the refs hand the Rangers all the penalties. And we're like, yeah, we had a decent amount of penalties last night. We scored on 2 of them. But you went 0 for 5. So, respectfully, hold that, But I don't know. It's going to be an interesting end to the series. We're going to be on the road for games 3 and 4. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it was on the road against Washington. But like we said at the very beginning of this episode, in my opinion, as long as we split these games, I will feel very confident. A 2-0 lead statistically is a good omen. Teams in the NHL playoffs that have gone up 2-0 have won 86% of all playoff series. The Rangers in recent years have succumbed to a few losses, but we beat Washington, and I have no doubts that we can beat the Carolina Hurricanes as long as we keep playing the way we've been playing. So I'm about ready to wrap up this, unless either of you have any final thoughts you need to share.
I love Vincent Trocheck.
Yeah,
I just want to say I love Vincent Trocheck. He's just been so great to watch all season, but in the postseason, it's like another level. It's just been awesome.
He stepped up.
I got one thing. I just thought of what I wanted to say before. I know I've been talking about him a lot after talking negatively about him all season, but Barclay Goodrow has been phenomenal. Last night, again, phenomenal. Massive block shots in crucial moments. He's been an absolute unit on the penalty kill. He's getting into the nitty-gritty areas and drawing penalties and getting calls and whatnot. Like, he's just been so good. He's been a great forechecker. He's making the smart plays. He's not forcing anything. I think he's been phenomenal. That whole bottom 6 really has been very good. And that third line, too, they've just been absolutely shut down. Wenberg, huge game from him last night. Big part of a couple of those goals. Obviously, the first one, he made sure that Freddie Anderson couldn't see a thing. And Lafreniere put it top corner. So, shout out to Wenberg as well. I just love what we're seeing from the whole team. I know that the bottom 6 doesn't get on the score sheet as much as we'd like, but they're producing in other ways that allow the top 6 and the Stars to do what they're doing. So a huge shout out to those guys for kind of figuring out their role and playing it to perfection. I know I talked about that a little bit yesterday on the live stream, but they've just been so good at doing what they have to do and not trying to do too much. And, as long as they keep that game and keep their simplified style of play and just go out there, focus on their job and their role, I think that, this team, the sky is the limit.
The sky is the limit with this team. The amount of, coincidences have been unreal. The fact that NASA yesterday revealed photos from the Messier 94 nebula.
Yeah.
That's absolutely ridiculous. It's getting crazy at this point. Mark Messier, captain of the 94 team. Then all of a sudden they didn't even name it as a reference. And then NASA just unleashes a new galaxy upon us. It makes it wonder, are the stars quite literally aligning for the 2024 30th year anniversary. But that about wraps up our Game 2 recap and discussion against the Carolina Hurricanes. Obviously, Game 3 is going to be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock p.m. So we're going to be going live to preview that game at 6 o'clock tomorrow. And once again, I have no idea who's going to be there with me. Maybe a couple of these two, maybe Will, maybe Dylan, maybe Allie. We had a lot of co-hosts on this channel. Who knows? Maybe all 6 of us. But we'll find out tomorrow at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But as far as this video goes, thank you to everyone that tuned in and joined us. If you are new, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you ring that bell so you don't miss a notification. And as always, hit that like button. If you're watching us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Once again, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. If there's any standouts in the game that we might have missed in today's episode, please let us hear it. We'd love to read your comments. And lastly, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms at Fireside Rangers on practically everything besides Facebook at this moment in time. Tony, let's get to work on that tomorrow. Lastly, as always, have a good one. And let's go Rangers.
Maybe.